It's Monday noon, the time is here. Shane and I'll be loud and clear. Pacific vibes, we bring the heat. AI agents can't be beat. AI agents hour, let's go. News and guests, the big show. Solving problems, we do it live. Stay informed, it's a vibe. Building agents that work for you. Making moves, we see it through. Every week, a brand new show. Tag along and watch your knowledge grow. AI agents hour, let's go. News and guests, the big show. Answering questions, we arrive. Every Monday, come alive. We want reviews, but only if it's a 5. We share the drama, we got the drive. Stay in the loop, it's the place to be. Shane and I'll be setting you free. AI agents hour, here to stay. Tune in Mondays, make your day. From the news to the problem solved. AI world, get involved.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to AI Agents Hour. I'm Shane. I'm here with Abby,
What up?
and we are together this week. And it's not Monday; it's Tuesday. You know, last week we talked that we might be doing it on Wednesday. We decided to do it today this week. But we have a great show. We're going to be talking about some emerging agent primitives that we've been seeing, talking to users of Mastra and other people that are building agents and agentic systems. We're going to ask the question, who are you building for? Are you building for humans? Or are you building for agents? And does it matter? Is it different? And then we're going to cover all the AI news. And there's a lot of it this week. So
A lot of drama.
a lot of drama. We always cover the drama here. Before we get started, if you haven't already, go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, go to Spotify. We're going to talk about Shopify. Go to Spotify and give us a 5-star review. nothing less. If you don't want to give us 5 stars, we understand. Don't give us a review at all. But if you want to give us only 5-star reviews, go to Spotify and do that, or Apple Podcasts, wherever else you get your podcasts. How's it going, dude?
Dude, it's going. We are not in SF right now. We are in Southern California, where I kind of grew up. Doing a little offsite. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I got to meet Abby's dad and mom, but, you can understand the story of the son through the story of the father. So let's just say I learned some things. He listens to the show. So Shaker, you might be listening to this.
Yeah.
But he had some suggestions. He came in strong with the suggestions for how to improve the show. So we are definitely going to try to implement some of those throughout this year. But
yeah, he told me to stop cussing. So yeah, we'll see how that fucking works. But
swear jar didn't last very long. Sorry.
Sam's here.
Okay.
Boom! I walked in right at the right time.
Yeah,
right for the cuss checks.
Yeah, so we got the 3 co-founders of Mastra all here.
Boom.
But yeah, let's get into the first thing that we want to talk about today. And this was kind of a cool. It's always cool when they have the best of lists, right? And
this is super exciting to see.
And we were able to see, so this is the 2025 JavaScript Rising Stars. And this is the 10th edition. And they have a AI section, which we're a part of. So that's always cool. Among good company, right? A lot of our friends and colleagues, but it's always nice to be on a good list. And it's all based on, GitHub growth, which, hey, if you haven't already started us on GitHub, please go do that now. Maybe we can get on there again.
We also have more stars than what's on the list.
Well, I think this was
a point in time.
Yeah, but I don't know if this was all this year, because I feel like we had more than that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how it counts it.
Happy to be there, though.
Yeah, happy to be on the list. It's among good company, but you can read about it. So I guess we are. Are we famous now? Are we rising stars?
We're rising stars.
We're not there yet. We're getting there.
We're rising stars. When we were at Gatsby, they always had these rising stars, or like this type of like these lists. And at some point, there's especially back then, it was like the static web was like proliferating. So at some point, there was just so many projects that you never knew if you were a rising star or not. Eventually, you just don't give a crap about it. But we care about it now because it's what's new. Yeah,
and it's AI is obviously, there's a lot of hype. It's a hot space to be in, but it is good to be good to have the growth recognized, I guess. So excited to have that.
We're cooking too. So.
Yeah. And this is a live show. So if you are watching it live, you can leave a comment. We will talk about it and probably pull it up on the screen. So if you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, and you want, you have an opinion on some of the stuff we're talking about, let us know. We like to talk about it.
Dude, so I feel ever since the holidays and people started getting Opus pilled and everyone started, doing side projects and just exploring, I think there's just so much excitement in building. Most of it's around coding agents and how to use them to their utmost potential. But there's just so many different patterns emerging from what everyone's experimenting with. So I thought we would talk about emerging primitives. And when we use the word primitive, what we mean is it's something that is fundamental to the architecture of what you're doing. And so you don't necessarily know when things become primitives. We have a rule that we don't really follow that well, that we make examples first, we play with things. And then if we see that it's going to become something that is standard, then that would then become into the Mastra framework. So, yeah.
An example would be, we were very early on MCP around this time last year, right? Yeah. MCP had been out for a little while, but, we started playing around with it. We kind of built examples of how it might work, kind of using some of the other existing tools that existed, and then eventually pulled it into, you can build MCP servers and clients right in, in the primitives themselves. So primitives are basically just building blocks, right?
Yeah. And so there's a bunch of things emerging. And if y'all are building every day, you probably see these. Maybe you're doing some hack solution or you're doing something, you know. So I think we'll start at the top here. So I think the first one that comes to mind is the Ralph Wiggum loop, which has taken everyone by storm. We covered that the last show. What is the actual primitive of a Ralph Wiggum loop? It is a loop of loops. It is the master loop, let's say, of a loop of loops that will essentially run infinitely until these check conditions are met, or stop conditions, whatever you want to call it. And this Ralph Wiggum stuff, in my experience, has been talked about for a while, but Opus and the other models are at this phase now where you could squint, like you would be okay with certain tasks. Here you go. I'll see you later. Infinite loop it. And if all the tests pass, then I'm good. Right.
And the reason that the loop of loops is important is, and we've been talking about this for the last year, but it's the context window, right? So your agent loop, your kind of inner loop, has a certain context window. You need to manage that context. Context engineering's obviously been a big term that we've talked about quite a bit. But by managing and allowing that agent to focus on a subset of the task, not the whole, maybe the whole thing, then you basically loop through and you're kind of passing off information between agents, right? You just have a for loop or a while loop that runs so many iterations until the task is complete. But that way, any one agent doesn't bite off more than they can chew, more than they have the context to complete without, having to go through some kind of compaction or losing context or exceeding the context window. And so it essentially allows you to get your agents to do more.
Yeah. So what is Ralph? And I don't even know if Ralph will be the name that sticks. Maybe it is for fun. Right now, we can call these like infinite agents, or there's any number of them. Ralph is probably what will be the current thing. But the primitives here are, one is the loop, right? You need a loop. You need a intelligent AI that can execute tools and do your task and everything. And then you need, now this is cool. This is kind of interesting because maybe Ralph is what will make evals cool, but you need to have evals to get yourself out of an infinite loop. The only way a Ralph Wiggum loop stops is if these conditions are met. They could be programmatic and deterministic, and that's what the main examples are. They're all showing, npm run tests and everything's good. That's good. But the next level stuff on this is you actually are running LLM as a judge on these things, and you only exit the loop if the judges or collection of judges allow you to leave. So what started as like this funny stuff is going to emerge and become a lot bigger this year, and you'll be able to use that within Mostra, I'm sure.
Yeah. What else?
All right. Sorry, it took a long time to explain that one, but these all build on each other. So second thing with these Ralph loops, and even if you're using cursor.com on your phone, is you need to be able to execute all this agent stuff in a way that you can just let it run and observe it. You don't need to sit there and watch. You just need to be observing it. So there's a lot of stuff. Our friend Kyle at Electric SQL, they have the library called Durable Stream. Upstash has durable Redis for your streams. Like, this is a concept. We already have durable workflows, and people think agents are workflows or workflows are agents. So all these things have existed. They're just going to become important. What do you think?
Yeah. The whole word durable, the amount of times I hear that in just calls talking to people building agents is increased a lot in the last 60 days, we'll say. So everything needs to be durable. And I think, you've probably seen it a lot if you pay attention to what's happening online. So it's just it's always been important. It's not like it's new, but I think it's becoming more apparent that it is more important than maybe people were thinking about before.
It's becoming like a UX where you don't need to be in a chat. You're essentially just like talking to you're just sending a bunch of notifications to people. So that's interesting. From there, we can talk about this whole word you'll be hearing a lot this year, harnesses. There's a bunch of harnesses here, harnesses there. People are asking, what's your favorite harness? Shane, what is a harness, dude? Why do we make dumb names for stuff?
Yeah. Harness is not my favorite name for, but yeah, it's essentially what can you build an agent harness is essentially, can you have a structure that allows you to give it's essentially like an agent loop plus tools plus prompts plus models like that corresponds to, like, that's an agent harness. So Claude Code is a harness, right? You can use that harness to build things. Mastra is a harness. There's a lot of different it's kind of a fuzzy word, but it's essentially like, can you give an agent with a loop tools and all the things needed to execute tasks, right? Is that
Yeah.
how would you define a harness?
100%. It's like the collection of all the stuff you need, and it's like a base level. You get to use that as is, or you can extend it, and that's the harness. In some ways, Mastra you can create a harness with Mastra. Mastra itself is a harness. Open code within Open Code has a harness. Claude Code has a harness. Yeah. So you'll hear that word a lot, and maybe people will be like, "Oh, we're this new harness for this or harness for that." So it's all bullshit. All right, moving on to one thing that's very shared, a shared primitive one thing that is shared across primitives, file systems, dude. File systems, people be talking file systems like a new religion on X. File systems are all you need. All you need
Yeah.
is files.
Yeah, you don't need RAG anymore. Just use files.
Yes.
Put it all in the file system.
The models were trained on file systems, so they know how to do bash and everything, so it's the best. Whether that's true or not, I don't really care, but it kind of makes sense,
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of libraries that are coming out. Terso has Agent FS, which allows an agent to have a file system just for itself. And then you can always use S3 or your local or Docker container or whatever you want to do. But if that's something like coding agents, definitely need their file system to do their stuff. So yeah. Go ahead.
And the other question or the thought is, it doesn't have to be limited to coding agents necessarily. Can you, rather than having some kind of complex RAG process, workflow that does the chunking, does the embeddings, all that, can you just give the agent access to all the files? Like, let's say it's a bunch of PDF files. You could have a whole RAG pipeline of, say it's hundreds of PDF files. They go in, you do some semantic search. Or can you just point a really smart agent at the file system and say, here you go. Now, I don't think it's going to be as good in all cases, right? If you have a lot of files, it still has to search through those and grep them, and it's not efficient. So latency wise, it's definitely not as good. But there's a case to be made where for a lot of use cases, you don't need to make it overly complex. Just give the agent the files and let it search itself.
Yeah, and with file systems, you can also store documents and other things that are essentially knowledge for the agent, which is knowledge is like a static truth for the agent, and you can represent that within a file system as well. Another great thing about file systems is Git exists. So you can, if you have files, then you can use Git to see diffs, commit things, etc. So there's probably going to be more and more emphasis on file systems.
I really think that file systems are really good or better maybe for longer running agents where you don't care if the agent has to take more iterations to find the right thing. I think it can go deeper, it can run longer. If you need the information really fast, I don't know that file systems is the right approach.
Probably not.
Because if latency is important, if you're building a chatbot, you probably don't want an agent loop looking through a whole bunch of files to find the information, right? You need semantic search to go get it. So RAG isn't dead, but I think file systems are becoming more popular for especially coding agents. Coding agents are all the rage because that's where a lot of people are making money. So that's where a lot of focus is. But there's a lot of other agents out there that could still benefit, especially if you don't have a huge knowledge base and you can just hand over a set of files, a folder to an agent and let it build the context itself. It basically allows it to manage its own context window in a way.
A natural extension of the file system, again, is a complementary thing called a sandbox. You've probably seen that, which is for secure code execution. Sandbox providers like E2B, shout out, Daytona, your local machine, whatever. These are things that are used alongside a file system. The sandbox could be the file system if you think about it, or it could just be a shell. And you can use this to just run scripts. So like if your agent is let's say it is actually doing analysis that requires mathematics, for example, it doesn't have APIs to do that. It actually has to write code. It would write the code within the file system, execute it, and then you would get your statistics. I'm talking about like languages like R and Stata and stuff, like not like JavaScript type shit, right? So that's the type of stuff where these things are crunching, or maybe they're building Jupyter notebooks and executing them. That's the type of vibe for sandboxes as well.
And we have Smith D13 from YouTube says scaffolding is, I guess, another word for it. I think you're referring to harness. Yeah, it's kind of just like harness is a fancy word for just like building your scaffolding around your agent. All right, next.
All right, so we talked about file systems, sandboxes. Knowledge is like part of file systems. Next is skills. Skills hasn't had its 2026 moment yet, but if it is going to have a moment, then it is also part of a file system, a skills MD folder, skills folder, skills MD. You can see where this is going, right? So maybe file system is a core primitive of this stuff. It's yet to be seen, but once again, it uses that. And if you don't know what skills are, it's a Claude replacement of MCP.
Yeah, if you look at agent skills, it's not an exact replacement of MCP. I see a lot of people saying MCP is dead. There's a lot of overlap though, right? You can accomplish, it actually muddies the water a bit. And, I was talking to a team today that was building with Mastra, and they were trying to decide, and you maybe can relate to this. They were saying, well, we want, agents to talk to other agents. And so we were thinking of using A to A. And then, I said, well, a lot of people also use MCP servers, that the tool is just a call to an agent, but you can abstract that away. And then they also they're very, very interested in using skills to basically provide information of how and when to call the agent itself, because you can do some of the same stuff in skills. You can not only provide context, but also like scripts and tools that can be used. So there's a lot of overlap between some of these. And I think that's what makes it confusing. Is it's not only just competing standards, but it's Anthropic has kind of competing standards in itself, because you can use some of the same things to accomplish the same goal.
Yeah, and everything seems very biased towards coding agents, because that's where the money is, y'all. They're not doing it for fun.
So Surafel says, I also saw programming tool calling, very interesting. And I haven't actually looked at this, but I'm assuming it's kind of like a code mode or something. Is that? Yeah, and I think that's going to be a very common pattern. You've probably heard code mode come up quite a bit, where it's like, the agent writes and executes its own scripts. In a lot of my Claude code usage, I will just have it create a script, whether a TypeScript or Bash script, and just give that script to Claude. And Claude now can call that when it needs to. Yeah. So you can just basically create tools that way on the file system as code, as scripts. And your agent can then execute, if it has file system access and sandbox access, you can just execute a script because it's just running code.
Yeah. But, your sandbox, like if you deployed your single agent to your server, and you just use the local file system and the local shell, you are using a sandbox and you are using a file system. Like, don't get like caught up in like the sauce of all the people offering stuff. Those products are great. But if it's just that kind of vibe, then you don't need to like worry about something fancy. All right, continuing on. This next one we're almost done. One thing we've noticed is people think compaction sucks, which is not a new opinion. We've had this opinion. People are saying it's lossy. It just happens too often. You're not getting good recall. But all of our coding agents are doing compaction. So there's a couple patterns emerging for that. So one is sub-agents. And I believe someone asked if we had already talked about sub-agents. So one is sub-agents. So now you are essentially running multi-agent systems where the context window of each agent is the thing that matters. And the main agent is maintaining its context window to be like the to check off where we are in the analysis, right? For example, what me and Shane do is we create a bunch of plans with tasks and itemized lists of things to do. And then we have all of our agents just go tackle of them independently because we've designed with task decomposition. We have designed the way to do that. Our main agent is just the homie who's sitting with us while we're waiting, right? Having coffee. It has to maintain the context of the overall, the state of the task list, but it really doesn't know that much about each one unless it goes and learns about it. So through that whole process, if you're doing massive agentic stuff, like running an army like we're trying to, you're compacting a lot. And we always, like, even yesterday we were making jokes like, oh, compaction just hit.
Yeah. Well, once I see that the compaction started, I have a heavy sigh, and then I decide, okay, I need to close this window as soon as possible and open a new thread and have it continue the work, right? But there's also the question of how do you efficiently pass the right context to those agents, because it can't pass nothing, right? You have to pass context. So when you talked about the Ralph Wiggum loop, often it's like there's the plan, there's the task list, and there's like the progress.txt file, or it's like the consolidated list of kind of dense summaries of what was accomplished. So there's enough context to understand that. A lot of times when I talk to my coding agent, I'm actually talking to it, and I actually almost convince it that it's handing off stuff to another engineer.
Yep.
It doesn't know that the other engineer is itself. It's like, so summarize it in a way that there's enough dense tokens that are like provide the progress, but you can hand it off and kind of get the next coding agent up to speed really quickly, right?
Yeah.
And so in those patterns are not just going to be patterns of coding agents, although that's where we're seeing them. These are patterns where if you're building any kind of agent that has to deal with a lot of data, a lot of information, or a lot of loops and iterations.
Yeah. So what we think will emerge is a better memory system. More to come on that. And then maybe there is no more compaction. Maybe there is. Who knows? And then multi-agent is going to be better.
Yeah. I did see that someone said that with a recent version of Claude code, and it was just this week. I don't know what version. They said they solved compaction. I don't buy it, but they understand it's a problem as well, right? So they're probably trying to develop other methods. So the problem with compaction is it's like a one-time event, right? That happens at the end when the context gets so full, then it compacts and it's like a summary. So you lose a bunch of context along the way. And so there may be some other methods to get more token dense summaries, and it's not just a one-time event.
Yeah. Memory is going to be a big thing in this game, and you're going to see it a lot in coding agents because everything's about coding agents right now. But what we're trying to say is these transcend coding agents. These are things that agents will just need to do. All right, last one. Sorry, this was a long segment. Vision. We haven't talked about vision in a long time. Maybe because it's hard and people don't give a shit. I don't know. I remember when we first started Mastra, this whole concept of computer use and vision were these big topics that everyone was obsessed with. That and voice, of course. But since then, vision, I feel, has not been in the mix, maybe because it is just hard to do or whatever. But we're going to need primitives for vision because even in the coding agent case, if I am doing UI, it's really hard for me to explain that, hey, man, this is 37 pixels off. This doesn't look good for this reason. I need to be able to give it a red line just like a designer would. It needs to see on the page. And even then, if it, like right now, all this code loop stuff is fun because we get to run TypeScript tests and Vi tests and Jest. Okay, what if it actually could run the browser, go actually experiment with whatever UI it built and iterate that way? The only way it would do that, it needs to have vision. So yeah.
And LLMs are actually pretty good if you go out and you give it screenshots. It's pretty good at recognizing what's wrong.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I can show it the screenshot, tell it what's wrong, and then it will know, and it can move it. It can say, oh, that looks like it's 10 pixels off, but it has to have the vision component, the screenshot. So a lot of people use Playwright MCP.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have been using Claude Code's Chrome extension for this. There's other tools, browser use, Stagehand, this new agent browser thing, which we'll talk about briefly, that Vercel released. There's a whole bunch of different tools that are trying to accomplish how do we give the ability for an agent to go out, run more end-to-end type tests, see and capture screenshots of what the UI looks like, and then pull that back into the context.
Yeah. So yeah, it's only January 13th, so we're still early in the year, but so much has already happened. So yeah, they'll all be in Monster eventually. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of it.
Yeah, what you'll see is I think more and more of the tools will start pulling these things in. You know, as there's discourse about it, people are talking. There's there will be some kind of like coalescing around some standards, right? And then those standards eventually get pulled into the tools that people are building. So you see a lot of like one-off tools, and then they eventually like kind of accumulate to the tools that try to do a little bit more.
I don't want to diss AI researchers, but I'm going to throw some shade. I don't mean to, though. There's no difference between the person, whoever's watching this, us, we're not PhDs, but we're not AI researchers, whatever you want to call it. But I would argue that we are, because we're the ones trying to test this stuff, have fun with it, play with it. So if you're watching and you're doing this stuff and you already knew about these primitives too, you didn't write a white paper, you've just been building so much that you're like, oh man, this is it. You're an AI researcher too.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next segment. But before we do, this is a little, we got a question from Spacework Dev. Hey guys, can you talk a bit about Mostra Stored Agents feature? I saw it in the Swagger API and I didn't find any docs about it.
There's a PR open right now.
You are sleuthing around a little bit into, some things that we're potentially building.
There's PR 11848. All will be revealed there.
Yeah, so things are coming.
I repeat, 11848.
So if you want to do some more sleuthing and you want to see maybe a bit into the roadmap or what we're going to be releasing pretty soon, a lot of times we'll obviously release hidden APIs and we're kind of release features that we're testing, and we don't add the documentation yet because we haven't finalized it. So yeah, more to come. All right. If you are watching if this is your first time or you're listening to it later on, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go give us a 5-star review. Only 5 stars. Nothing else will do. And if you please subscribe on YouTube. Tell a friend about the show that's interested in building with AI. We're trying to we have a producer now, so we have to show a little growth.
Dude, we got this cool ass mic too.
we actually got even
nicer mic.
There's going to be some setup changes. Hopefully the quality will continue to increase. We're changing streaming platforms to try to like improve some of the things that we can do with it. So if you have suggestions, you can find us. And if you're wondering how to find us, well, follow us on X, smthomas3, or Abby Iyer. You might be watching this on X right now. Right. And also, you might be noticing this. One of the other reasons to go to YouTube and subscribe is we're going to start taking some of these segments. So let's say you watch the show, you can't catch it live every week, right? Because we don't always do it at the same time. We're guilty of that. We try to do it Mondays at noon Pacific, but sometimes, we have full-time jobs like you all probably do. So it's hard to guarantee the same time, and there's travel schedules, all that. But each of these segments, for the most part, we're going to kind of be breaking up into and releasing as their own standalone videos. So this will always be live. You'll have you can always watch the full live episode. But if you just really care about the news, for instance, and you can't watch the whole show, it'll be released a few days later as its own kind of standalone video on YouTube. So we're going to try to break it up to make it so you can kind of self-serve the content that you actually want.
Dude, we're so sophisticated now.
We're slowly, like you do things enough time, maybe you get a little bit more polished, just a little. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about is this kind of phenomenon where in the past, if you're building software, you were building for humans for the most part. Like, yeah, maybe APIs were consumed by other tools, other software, but for the most part, you're probably building products for humans. Now, oftentimes you're not just building for humans, you're building for maybe humans and agents, or maybe just mostly agents. Yeah. So as coding agents become better, more and more codes being written. I think this year, one of the predictions that we had is you're going to see GitHub's going to have way more open source projects than ever, and it's probably not going to be like double. I think it's going to be 5 times more or 10 times more code is released in open source than ever before, right? And most of it's going to be generated by coding agents. Abi built a platform called Wit, which is like a TypeScript version of Git, over maybe a week of kind of a few days here and there playing around with it. There's a lot of these tools that are built now just specifically to hand to agents. So that I mentioned this agent browser tool by Vercel is really meant to be like hand this tool to an agent so it can go take its own screenshots and figure out what's going on. Oh. The Ralph loop itself, people are kind of releasing it, and it's just a tool that is used by humans, but to extend the life of agents. So we're building all these tools that have a lot of downstream effects. So this was maybe an interesting, but also maybe a bit sad reality of some of this stuff is that there are some downstream effects to this agent world, right?
Yeah.
So let's
kind of a double-edged sword.
Yes. So if we look at this, this was last week, and Tailwind lays off 75% of their team. And the reason is so ironic. Their CSS framework became extremely popular with AI coding agents. If you go and you use Lovable or Replit, it's going to use Tailwind. It just is, right? So their growth exploded. The amount of downloads exploded. But because it was the coding agents writing it, the coding agents just knew how to use Tailwind. It could look at the code. It could look at the docs if it needed to. So it resulted in a ton of drop in traffic and a ton of revenue loss, because the way that Tailwind had a business model is people would go to their docs. They would realize that maybe they needed some specialized help or services or products, and they would then
consulting
or consult. Yeah. So they'd basically then be upsold by manually the humans visiting the docs. But if humans don't need to visit the docs, right? If you have a question about Tailwind, you're probably just going to ask Claude. You're not going to the Tailwind docs or Stack Overflow or any of these other tools that we used to use.
Yep.
And that has downstream effects.
I mean, even look at Stack Overflow in the same kind of realm. Like, I mean, thank God they sold at the time that they did. So here's my question to you, Shane. And we've been getting these contrarian takes in our community. If the price to build code goes to zero, what happens to open source? Some of our friends have even mentioned, why do I even care about Lodash? I'll just have my agent just write my functions before I use them. So you can see there's just like a bunch of diabolical, there's just diabolical implications on both sides.
Yeah. We should consider the world where it's really cheap or nearly free to develop software. Now, maybe your coding agent is going to decide to use frameworks, or maybe it'll decide to build it itself. As an example, in a side project I was building, I've been trying to spin up a whole bunch of different projects just to see how far I can push, a Ralph Wiggum loop or Claude Code, and how fast I can build production-ready things. And I'll share some of these projects here once they're ready.
Sick, by the way.
Some of these projects when they're ready. But as one example, it's essentially think of it like a consumer-facing app. It's a website, web app. But I needed a onboarding sequence. You sign up, you need to get emails every day, the first 5 days or whatever, to try to onboard you to the product. And originally I was like, well, use resend. I think I would have proposed it, but I'm pretty sure Claude Code just decided for me, which I said, yeah, let's do that. And then I said, it came up with a plan to build its own email sequencer. And I was like, whoa, I would normally never do that. I'd grab ConvertKit or MailChimp or one of the mini newsletter softwares that have email sequencing built in. And then I did a little, back and forth with Claude. And eventually what I arrived at is I have an admin for this app that allows me to track how people are progressing through it. Why not just build the email sequencer right into that admin? And so I did it in about 15 minutes, and it just worked. And so the entire $30 a month I would have spent on ConvertKit or whatever email sequencing software, because I don't have that complex of needs. I want to send email sequencing. I want to be able to people to opt out. I want to see click-through rates. I want to see Open rates, from what you can track, you can't track them as well as you used to be able to. But it basically did an analysis and said, just use resend. We can write the code, and we did it. So there's a lot of implications, and I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but I think it's going to push the price of SaaS services down. I think it's going to make a lot of tools that are open source. It'll like crown winners. Some of them will have huge usage, but it'll be usage by coding agents. And I think that'll obviously it could disrupt a lot of open source business models as well. So, these things that have effects. There's no going back. Like, we're not going to turn them off. I think we'll have to find how do we adapt businesses around kind of this new reality.
Yeah, because like open source is a winner take all type of environment. Unfortunately for Tailwind, they won. Tailwind won their class, but they just got rocked by the category, which is like CSS and stuff. More people are frustrated with CSS than anything, So it could happen to anything. What was Grayson saying?
Yeah, Grayson, a comment, moat collapse.
Moat
A
collapse.
little bit of and it collapsed faster than people normally would expect. And another kind of data point that would support this is there was a post that came out last week that said, and I'll share it here on the screen. It said, wild stat, Databricks says 80% of new databases are now created by AI agents, not humans. The data stack we built for dashboards, tables, and batch ETL is about to feel very outdated. Infra is now for agents. Whoever is building AI agent native infra will win this next gen. So again.
So it's like, do you even care what your database is, right? Database is another contentious thing that technically there's no true winner unless you have the most training data. And maybe that's what popularity means for agents, is how much training data and examples and docs exist that are indexed in the internet or wherever. And you don't even have to be good, actually. You just have to be everywhere.
Yeah, it is kind of, if you think about it, how many people are going to be building with AI agents that, and a lot of these will be small projects, right? But a lot of small projects could turn into revenue generation for teams. But if you're the number one recommended, like resend is always what gets recommended for email, right?
Yep.
There's just this, and it's great. It's a great product. But if you're number two, it's like being on the number one rank of Google, right? It's like the traffic drop off between 1 and 2. And then like, if you're not on the first page at all, it's 0. I think this is even more aggressive. It's like, if you're 1, you're getting like 95%.
Yeah. And Claude always recommends the first option that it has. And it's not because it knows. It's just like number 1 recommended. Yeah. It didn't look at the second one, why would it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think maybe it'll get better, and it will try to take into account your tech stack a little bit, right? But there is, if you're building tools, you should be thinking about how do you make the tools really, really, really attractive for agents? Because that's probably who you're selling to. You're not selling to humans. You're selling to agents. And Grayson says, OSS package management does provide supply chain security that will be more difficult to manage. Yeah, exactly. So I'll push back on this a little bit, Grayson, because I agree with you. But the flip side is you can now turn agents onto open source packages and have it find security vulnerabilities that are going to be, it's easier than ever to find security vulnerabilities in code. But that also will make it more robust over time, right? If you actually did that. So there's a lot of vulnerability and security agents that are scanning code, and having it do it on your open source repo will get you you can kind of buy into the security that open source software is inherently more secure than something that's private that could be taken advantage of without you even maybe knowing.
Dude, also the trend has not been in that favor given like all the different vulnerabilities this year. But I do understand the sentiment. I'm actually pro open source still. When I'm building my fun projects and it just uses libraries that, I guess we're old heads in this, when it uses libraries that my friends created, and I'm like, well, yeah, that was the winner in that category of what I'm doing. It's cool because I already trust that the docs are good. It's going to go build whatever I need. I've become less biased on what tool it is. If I respect the tool, then I'll use it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our last segment today. For those of you just joining us, this is AI Agents Hour. We do this every week. We talk about all the news. We talk about some of the things we're seeing with people and teams that are building AI agents. We talk about coding agents. We talk about software development in general. But we're going to go ahead and move on to what I think is a lot of people's favorite segment every week.
The drama.
The news. And so we're going to go through some of the drama that we've seen. But before we talk about drama, let's talk about a product launch by some of our friends. So Sanity today, this just came out today. They launched Content Agent, days of work in one conversation. So it's a schema-aware agent for content audits, bulk edits, and web research. It's now generally available. So you can basically see here that it's an agent that sits on top of your CMS that can do bulk operations for you. It lives in your CMS for you. It can do long-running tasks, do things that you'd have to do tons of manual pointing and clicking to accomplish before. There's a video. We're not going to watch it, but you can kind of see that Content Agent kind of sits outside of, I guess it's inside, but it's kind of slightly outside the edges of your CMS. And I played around with it. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, we use Sanity at Mastra for some of the content on our website. And funny enough, Content Agent uses Mastra.
Yep.
So if you want to see a production Mastra agent in action, go check out Sanity's Content Agent. All right. Next up, we have the drama.
The drama. It's time.
All right. Lay it on me. What's going on? What's happening?
All right. Here's the tea. Yeah, here's the tea. Before we get into the exact tea, there's one fact that everyone needs to know about, because now it seems a little bit common. Every coding provider that you see, IDE or not, is offering what is looking like a $200 a month plan. So essentially, they're giving you a buffet of tokens, right? The first people to do that essentially was the Claude Max plan, and that only worked with Claude Code, and it does not work on team accounts. You have to subscribe as an individual, and that's cool. Now, third-party coding agent tools like OpenCode or Claude with a WD or something, and maybe even AMP if they're using it that way, implemented the ability to use the Max Plan token in those apps, not Claude Code. They did that by spoofing the system prompt, and there's also a header you send, but you can spoof the system prompt saying, hey, I'm Claude Code. So that's just the backstory. I have been using this hack. Let's call it a hack for what it is. I've been using it because I like open code, and I do pay $200 for the Claude Max plan. If I didn't have a Claude Max plan, I don't think anything would be possible. That's how I feel. And so last week, Anthropic, I think it was Tariq from Anthropic, posted that they are essentially enforcing that you cannot do that anymore and it violates their terms and conditions. So immediately overnight, anyone who is doing the hack in any of those products, they got an error message saying that, hey, you can only use this. You can't use the API key this way, which then the internet blew up. And so that's kind of where the drama starts.
Yeah, first thing is this should never, Ben Davis says this should never been possible in the first place. 2, they screwed up and made it possible for months. Taking it down now feels awful. Once you have something out like this for long, pulling it back sucks. I'm pissed. And you just can, if you read the thread, there's a lot of people, and this is only one of many posts. Yeah. There's others. And if you look, this was a kind of a funny summary. The pushback against Anthropic right now is pretty stupid. Here's basically what happened. They invent a new concept of an all-you-can-eat subscription to their amazing buffet restaurant. It's the best food in town, so everyone wants it. People sign up in huge numbers and start using the hell out of it. anyone who is fully using a Max subscription is getting way more food than they would be able to possibly get in a regular restaurant.
Yep.
Not like 10x, but 100 or 1000x. This is a major risk for the Anthropic restaurant because they're getting killed on super eaters or to go to the buffet and use it fully. But it's okay because many don't use it as much. So on balance, it's a great strategy in getting tons of people exposed to the platform, which makes the restaurant blow up even more. But now other restaurants, aka Open Code and some of the others, they hear about it and they're like, oh, so all you have to do is say you have a subscription and they'll let you eat as much as you want. Cool, we'll come to Tony's Italian Buffet and give them the Anthropic code and you can eat for free. So now Anthropic sees their usage go through the roof because every restaurant in town is having the users use their effing coupon. So then Anthropic says, hey, actually, if you want to abuse our system, you at least have to come to our restaurant to abuse our system. You have to come through Claude Code or the Claude desktop app, Claude Code within the desktop app. So now everyone in town is upset because you can only abuse Anthropic's extremely generous food policy from Anthropic's actual restaurant. So
Yep.
it was a loophole, right? And it's like they're perfectly capable of turning off the loophole. I mean, the thing is, it's kind of hard for them to actually fully turn it off. There's ways, like people will find ways to like, yeah, kind of spoof it. I think there's like, it's to be a, they'll make a change. Coding editors will find ways to make a change because you just kind of have to figure out it's a cat and mouse game.
There were workarounds right away, but then people were afraid of violating TOS, getting banned, because it's better to have Anthropic than to be banned.
Yeah.
Right.
But as far as what kind of, and so I have a dashboard that I've used to keep track of my token usage just because it's fun. So I built this and it kind of just reads my Claude Code cache. And this is what it would have cost me using just API credits, right? So this is in the last, let's just look at this year for the heck of it. So this year, it would have cost me $500 in tokens. And that's on my $200 Claude Max plan. And we're only 13 days in. So if you extrapolate that out, I would have had to pay $1,000 for the same usage as my $200 plan. And that's why people who are using these other tools are really freaking out. Because if you are a super user, your cost, because you can still use Opus, you can use the API key, but your cost now has gone through the roof. So
everyone should be spending as many tokens as possible, because if they cut it off, you don't want to regret not spending tokens. You don't want to regret not eating for free.
Exactly. And Ian Jones says you can do NPX CC usage, which I'm assuming is Claude Code usage. I didn't use that. I'm imagining it's pretty good, and I just built it myself because it was fun, and I've been experimenting. But yeah, there's tools for this.
Yep.
Essentially, all your Claude Code usage is stored at least temporarily locally, and you can. So I basically build a system that just ingests it into a SQLite database. But there's a lot of there's other ways to do it. So it is, if you want to see your usage, there are tools.
So here's where things get a little dicey in the drama, because it's all about like what people's perception is. Because Open Code literally the week before, let's say a couple of days before, they released their first giveaway of not a giveaway, but their first access to Open Code Black, which is $200 a month, any model on Open Code. And so that seems competitive and not good. And so Open Code got to take a lot of good, they got a lot of good faith out of this. They partnered with OpenAI for Codex login. And then they also partnered with Copilot for logging in there. So everyone was just taking the opportunity to bully Anthropic, essentially.
So Ian Jones asks, have you seen the Open Code vulnerability that dropped today? No. You should link us.
Link us. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So that great call out. I haven't seen it. I would love to know. Abby's going to do some searching. But yeah, send us a link. Let's talk about it right now. That sounds newsworthy. But while we get some information on that, let's talk a little bit about the other side of Anthropic, right? Anthropic's maybe cracking down on its Max Plan subscription usage, but Anthropic has been shipping. So Anthropic has shipped quite a bit. One of the things, this is a little thing, but quality of life. Claude Code sandbox to your current directory. Now Claude Code, you can basically use a / command to add another directory, and Claude. So if you have a directory outside of your Git repo that you need to use for reference, so sometimes I, will have multiple projects that are not a mono repo, but it's a front end and a back end. Now I can allow it to see the front end in the back end repo or something like that. Obviously, if you're in a mono repo, it all just works, but sometimes some people don't have that. So it's a nice quality of life feature. Right. So they open sourced a code simplifier agent that they use on the Claude Code team. So you can just a Claude plugin, install code simplifier, and then you can just ask Claude to use the code simplifier agent at the end of a long coding session to clean up complex PRs. So they're using it internally. My guess is the idea is like you have a long PR. A lot of times coding agents will go off the rails and maybe they added something and they don't ever come back and fix it or like implement it. So you sometimes have unused imports and just things like that, where this would clean it up before it even gets to your CI process, which will probably catch it anyways. But there's other benefits too, where it maybe just simplifies and reconsiders how it might use code. And you can use things like CodeRabbit and other PR review tools to catch some of this too, but it's built right into Claude Code, so that makes it easy. I imagine there'll be a lot of people using a code simplifier in like a CI process too.
Yep.
And another thing that Claude shipped, which maybe you all saw, Claude Cowork, which the funny thing is they said they built this in a week and a half. I don't know if I fully believe it, but it's pretty impressive if they did. And obviously it's built on top of things like Claude Code. So they already had the underlying tools to make it happen, but it's just a UI that basically allows maybe less technical people or your less technical tasks to use Claude Code. You just give it a folder on your computer.
Is that a file system or what?
We're just talking about file systems, and Claude can then read, edit, or create files in that folder. So you can have it create a spreadsheet or produce a draft. And then Claude will, of course, do what it does. It makes a plan, it completes it, looping you in along the way, and it uses your file system that you gave it access to. So
Dude, I'm embarrassed for that person's desktop.
well,
Look at those folders, dude. Get your life in order,
And
bro.
now
Oh, there you
and
go.
there it is. So that's the idea. It's like you give it this messy desktop, and now it'll clean it up for you. I should do this with my downloads folder.
Yeah.
Determine if something's actually important. There's 5,000 things here. Throw the rest in the trash. So Anthropic shipped quite a few things. They also shipped, or at least published, this research paper. So they call it constitutional classifiers. So it's really more efficient protection against jailbreaks. So jailbreaks are, a common problem with LLMs, right? You can kind of get it to do things it wasn't supposed to do, get it to circumvent its guardrails.
Yeah, like using Claude Code in a different environment. Or sorry,
Yeah.
the Max plan. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. And so essentially there's, research on ways to reduce how easy it is to jailbreak, in this case, Claude. But this kind of research is important because security is kind of a complex topic. And maybe, next time we bring Ali on and do a security corner, we can probably talk about something like this, because I think the world of where you have these non-deterministic systems becomes a little bit more of, you have to be even more security conscious than maybe you were before.
Yeah, it's like natural language is like the vector. So you have to have, like, that's what this whole constitution is like for different types of words and how they're put together, there's certain ways they should allow it to proceed or not. Maybe there's certain words that are jailbreaky type words, and those are red flags. So they're like, if you prompt it that way, it should not do it. So super interesting.
All right. Do we find this open code vulnerability?
Yes, I'll share it right now.
All right. The TLDR from Ian says, don't run server.
So, you can get XSS through Open Code Web UI. This is one of them. You essentially, I've seen this one. I spelunked their code before too. The Open Code server runs, and you essentially have access from the both the TUI and the web UI into that, which then you can do a bunch of other stuff. This definitely is not good. So that here's critical as hell. And yeah, you could just start executing random stuff through the PTY endpoint. No good. They have another one too.
Is there a fix out yet? Or
I
is
don't
it just
think so.
reported?
It was just published here. And then some arbitrary command execution. Yeah, so don't expose it to the internet.
Dang.
That sucks.
So here's some big news from Google. You probably can guess it if you've been paying attention. Joint statement. Apple and Google have entered into a multi-year collaboration under which the next generation of Apple Foundation models will be based on Google's Gemini models and cloud technology. These models will help power future Apple Intelligence features, including a more personalized Siri coming this year. About time.
About time. Wow.
About time. If you've used Siri, you know this is desperately needed because Siri sucks. Maybe Siri will suck less.
Hey Siri, do you know that you're about to become Gemini?
I found this on the web.
Stupid, dude.
Yeah. So, anyways, as you can tell, as you probably have experienced, this was needed. Apple has been way behind. It turns out Apple isn't going to be able to ship it themselves, so they have at least decided for now they're not going to be able to ship the intelligence needed themselves, so they partnered. Big win for Google, and I mean, they control search, and now they control the intelligence. Like they control, like they're still the default web search on iPhone.
Yeah.
Now they're the intelligence. I mean,
What happened to the OpenAI partnership? I thought that would material into something, but I guess not enough into Siri. I think it just maybe powered searches or something if you had it enabled, but yeah, it's whack. Siri should be a voice agent in your phone that knows how to like, hey Siri, pull up the privacy settings. Hey, do this, do that. Like, but now it's a piece of shit.
yeah. So Google has some other. That's the big news. There's some other small things that Google has talked about. They released an update to Gmail. Say hello to AI Inbox. So it's AI overviews in Gmail and much more. There's a video. We're not going to watch it, but you can imagine that there's a lot of things that you can do, especially if you have 10,000 emails in your inbox like I do. Don't email me. You might not get a response, but there needs to be tools, right, for people to help manage all these emails that they're getting. And I haven't tested it, but I imagine it'll help. I would hope. There's a lot of people building kind of AI first email tools.
Yeah.
Be curious. I haven't seen any of them really take off though.
Yeah.
So
Agent mail and stuff. Maybe it's not really an email inbox, but maybe more so just an inbox.
yeah. There's some other like Chrome extensions on top of Gmail that now are probably less relevant with this. There's some of their own like AI specific email services that I have looked at. I've never really tested. Curious if you want listening to this or watching this, are you using any other service besides Gmail to add like an AI layer on top of your email? I'm guessing not. Another announcement from Google. AI agents will be a big part of how we shop in the not so distant future. To help lay the groundwork, we partnered with Shopify, Etsy, Wayfair, Target, and Walmart to create the Universal Commerce Protocol, a new open standard for agents and systems to talk to each other across every step of the shopping journey. And coming soon, UCP will power native checkout so you can buy directly on AI mode and the Gemini app. So your agents, again, you're not selling to humans, you're selling to agents. The agent's going to buy the stuff for you, and it's going to happen directly in the app. So,
dude, Google's coming after OpenAI's milkshake. I'm gonna drink it.
And if you remember, there was an ACP protocol which was developed by Stripe I don't remember.
OpenAI, right?
Yeah, maybe it was OpenAI. There's some other partners. They had like the ACP. So you have ACP versus UCP.
Yeah.
I do think they're not 100% overlapped. There's some slight differences, right? ACP is around just like more around payments, where UCP seems more targeted at like the whole shopping journey, which includes, payments.
Yeah.
But they're definitely doing some of the same things. So they're definitely competing protocols, and just like, yeah, we'll see who wins, if any of them. I imagine that one standard will emerge. I doubt we'll have two.
Yeah, dude, life is just search and paying over and over again.
This one was very surprising to me. Shouldn't have been, but it kind of was. The craft of engineering is rapidly changing. At RAMP, we built our own background coding agent to accelerate faster. We call it Inspect. It wrote 30% of merged front-end and back-end PRs in the past week. It's powered by open code, which we just talked about, Modal, and Cloudflare Dev. I hope they're not running the open code server. It runs fully on the cloud and starts in seconds, letting every builder work at the speed of thought, no setup required. Today, we're open sourcing the full blueprint so anybody can build their own Inspect. Just give our spec to your current coding agent and let it build your new favorite. Okay. But I heard some interesting stats that it actually performed really, really well compared to like Claude Code and some different things. So I don't know how true that is, but
this is all like, this reminds me of like back in the day when like there's no winner in this space on like how to do things and everything. And when you start getting the companies that have good reputation and are big, and they start doing open source stuff, or they start sharing their inner workings, it just shows that we're like maturing a little bit as like a community. Like RAMP, they did it because they can, and not many companies can just build stuff because they have the revenue and all that stuff to just explore those things. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and their RAMP team moves pretty quickly. So
very quick.
Last week, we talked a little bit about OpenAI's announcements around some healthcare type features, and they're not done. OpenAI says we've acquired Torch, a healthcare startup that unifies lab results, medications, and visit recordings. Bringing this together with ChatGPT Health opens up a new way to understand and manage your health. We're excited to welcome the Torch team to OpenAI. So they bought basically a healthcare startup, and OpenAI is not the only one that's doing stuff in healthcare. We talked about Anthropic. There's now this solutions healthcare page on the Claude website that says transform healthcare from insight to action. Claude helps healthcare organizations move faster without sacrificing accuracy, safety, or compliance. Less administrative work, more time with the people you serve. So if you look, they're partnering, and they need to fix their CSS here. Come on, Claude. Have Claude Code fix that.
Yeah.
But they're partnering with some large healthcare organizations. It kind of ties into different healthcare ecosystems, but it's built more for providers, where I feel like OpenAI is built more for consumers to kind of manage their own, where Claude is doing the more business thing, the enterprise thing. They're going to the healthcare providers, but they want to get in the game as well. Dude, I did see this one. I don't remember who it was, but they basically got some like DNA test, and they fed it into, I believe it was OpenAI, but I could be wrong. And it was, normally they would have to have some like special software to like read it.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically, I think they fed it into Claude Code. They basically had Claude Code read the data from this flash drive they got and build a front end for it. And they said it was better than the version they used to pay for to read this type of data. So it's just a wild world we live in. But
personal software is wild.
Personal software using these LLMs for personal healthcare, health questions. I think,
dude, healthcare is so messed up. They don't have access to these tools, or even if they do, no one's trained to use them. They're just living in the past, So hopefully this all makes things better.
Mentioned this. I thought it was kind of cool, so we'll mention it again. Weekend project agent browser. So it's a it's amazing what you can ship in a weekend nowadays, but it's open source. You can run it through NPM. It's similar to like what you can do with stagehand and browser use and some of these other tools, right? But there's another player in town when it comes to simple browser tools that you can provide to agents. I do like the idea that you can just give the command to an agent and let it go take its own screenshot,
Yep.
right? So open this page on localhost, screenshot it, pass it back to the agent. So I think there's some cool like loops you could do to get your agent to fix itself. I still always, the challenge with some of this stuff is authentication. You gotta, there's some things that you can do, you can work around, but it gets a little more challenging. But it's
Yeah.
interesting tool. Another tool for your Claude Code tool belt. 11 Labs released Scribe v2. And if you read this, it says, this was from January 9th. Scribe v2 real-time is optimized for ultra low latency and agent use cases. What we were just talking about. It's not even built for humans, built for agents.
Yep.
So it's built for batch transcription, subtitling, and captioning at scale. So it's the lowest word error rate based on industry standard benchmarks. It improves stability from Scribe v1, handles pauses, changes in tone and delivery, and it can handle long silences without issues. So it can deliver accuracy in more than 90 languages.
That's awesome. That's a real-time model too, right?
Yeah, I think that's the whole point, is it's just
Yeah.
like ultra low latency. So you can basically transcribe in real time. And so you can imagine how this is important for potential voice agents and voice
Yeah.
tech. A few more things. There's some we can't go a whole episode, or at least 2 episodes. I don't know if we talked about any last week. I felt like we probably did. But there's always the Chinese labs are making moves,
Yep.
right? So Chinese AI startup Minimax went public in China. So they had a 2.4 billion IPO.
It's awesome.
And now this says 619 million IPO. I don't know. Unclear from the what to believe, but
That dude's rich.
anyways, they went public. Minimax started as on the sidelines, it says, and then it eventually started tackling harder problems, built a model that's pretty good. A lot of people say it's a pretty good model.
I tried using it yesterday because I got rate limited by Claude, and it was okay, but it's just I didn't trust it the same way.
Did you use GLM too? I thought you were
I did both.
used both.
Yeah, GLM. I also had the same kind of feeling, which I guess we're talking about right now.
Yeah. So GLM is officially public as well. So they went, and this was in January 8th. There's not as much financial details on this one, but they went public. So there you go. So model companies that are kind of shipping on their smaller model companies, Chinese model companies, are now going public because they are getting some traction. They're in the game.
But can you believe that their valuation, like let's say the $2.4 billion valuation, is small? It's like not even that big.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's and this is the case with Japan too. Like the companies that go public, it's much smaller companies can go public. I imagine maybe it's similar in China. I don't know the Chinese market as much as the Japanese market, but it seems like most companies that size wouldn't be going public in the US, right? You'd have to be a little bit bigger, but it is still a milestone for some of these companies. They're investing and growing.
Yeah.
Now we're going to do our GitHub repo of the week. So looks like you picked one. I picked one as well. We like to highlight some projects that seem a little interesting, or at least make me stop and think. So continuous Claude v3. It kind of feels like a more enhanced Ralph loop in my opinion. I haven't used it. I probably won't, but I am monitoring it. If it continues to, people start talking about it a little bit more, it keeps growing, maybe I'll give it a try. But it talks about essentially comes back to the compaction problem.
Yeah.
And so it has its own loop and helper to kind of manage context. So it's kind of the loop outside the loop, so to speak. So it's, they call it continuous Claude. So go ahead, give it a star.
Star.
And tell us about the one you.
So this is from a company called Pierre, and it's a UI to look at diffs and a lot of your favorite coding agents and Conductor and Superset and all of them are using libraries. I believe it's this library. So if you also need to render diffs, which I did yesterday,
Are we using this?
Yeah.
Oh, all
to
right.
render the diff. So it's open source. They also own, what's really cool is they own diff.com. Like they literally own diffs.com. And they have like a REST API too, where you can just send them a string and they'll just send you a diff and you can just render it in an iframe. So that's pretty cool. But then you don't want to leak your like credentials and secrets and stuff to them. So be careful with that.
And while you're at it, while you're already on GitHub, give Mastro a star if you haven't already. github.com/mastra-ai/mastra. We appreciate it. And that's the show.
Yeah.
If you're watching right now, go subscribe, give us a like, leave us a comment in the last 60 seconds. Tell us what you're building. And we'll be back. So it's next week's again. It's weird because I would say 9 out of 10 times we would do this on Monday, noon Pacific. That's when you can expect us most weeks. But next week's a special week. So we're going to be doing another different day. So it's going to be Tuesday next week, probably right around noon Pacific time. But expect a show at that time rather than our normally scheduled Monday. So that's a little housekeeping. Know when to keep an eye out if you like to watch the show live. If you're watching it after the fact, now you know when you can catch us live. The live is the best way because then you can interact, leave us some comments, and we'll talk to you.
Yeah. Shall we get out of here?
All right.
All right.
Let's get out of here.
Peace.
See ya.
Yo, that show's a wrap. We were live in the zone. AI agents out with Shane and Abby on the throne. Did you give us that review? Only if it's a 5. Jump on the tube, make sure to like and subscribe. Yeah, news so fresh, yeah, we keep you in the loop. Get so fly, they bring the whole troop. AI on the rise, don't miss this power. Welcome to the show, it's AI Agents Hour. Did you just drop in? Is this your first time? Make sure to follow us on X and go like and subscribe. Yeah, learn the principles and patterns in our books. The master.ai site, give it a look. Yeah, news so fresh, yeah, we keep you in the loop. Get so fly, they bring the whole troop. AI on the rise, don't miss this power. Welcome to the show, it's AI Agents Hour. This is the end, we all wrapped up. Another showdown, another one coming up. AI Agents Hour's done, but the news doesn't cease. Shane and Abby, we out of here. Peace.